Hey there, Ghosties. Welcome back. This is episode 84 of the Ghost Lights podcast. Today's guest is Justy Robinson, a aspiring writer, director, and a guy that's actually acting out there. I've had the good fortune of working with him twice over the pandemic and got to have a really awesome conversation where at one point I felt the need to kind of project some of the questions I wished was asked of me when I was his age and maybe manipulated the situation a little bit, but he was a good sport and I had a great time. I hope you'll enjoy. Please make sure to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about the Ghost Lights podcast and, check out the True West Awards. You might find something interesting. Now here's War by the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble. Dan, you know what to do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ghost Lights podcast. It is your boy, Sam Gilstrap. That name's got a ring to it like a wedding vow. Every kiss begins with K. And every podcast begins with Sam. Hi, it's me. I think this is episode 84 now. We almost got to 100, but the holidays, shows, life changes, like finding our own house. Big ups to my producer, the production moil, Dan Ribb. He had a big holiday winter season. I hope you all had fun, safe holidays. They're not over yet. We got New Year's Eve right around the corner, and I hope you'll approach those days with the same amount of caution and joy as you did Christmas. And with that being said, I've got a good new friend of mine, someone I've had the good fortune of working with twice now in the last year. We bookended the pandemic essentially as far as, it's still going, it's still raging, but we did stuff together at the start of and in the middle of the pandemic. It is my boy, Justy Robinson. Justy, how the heck are you?
I'm doing pretty well, and yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. I'm really glad to see you. We met on I'm going to say ill-fated production of random Halloween-ish stories about the human condition, where we played clowns trying to get through our day respectively. We didn't really have a script. We improvised our entire evening every night. I leaned more for seeking of connection. And Justy, how did you approach being a clown with no script?
Yeah, well, to be honest, a little different. I was going in more of the direction of the whole idea, and this was kind of also the case because of the audio that I was doing before. Mm-hmm. Before that, because actually the installation that we were working on, I'm pretty personal friends with Mo. I have been since I was pretty young. Mm-hmm. She asked me to do the audio, so the whole thing was this super kind of oppressive idea of we're not literally clowns, right? Mm-hmm. But life is beating on us, right? And it's we're not really able to escape that. So I kind of leaned into it, mm-hmm. and I was kind of spastic. I'd play games with them, and I'd try my best to let them win, and if they won, I would throw the thing, mm-hmm. Be upset generally, mm-hmm. Kind of loaf around in different ways. Yeah. That was more my approach.
That was a very similar approach with me. My least favorite thing is when they would catch on the idea that I was letting them win, and then they would get angry with me. I got cussed out one day by this large man who wanted the challenge of beating an actor clown at tic-tac-toe.
Wild.
Yeah. And when I beat him, he demanded to do it again. And I beat him a second time, and then his wife dragged him away. And when he left, he said, "Fuck off."
I think you told me about this that night.
Yeah, I was I just got cussed out by an audience member for some reason. He did not want me to He did not want me to let him win, but he definitely did not want me to win. You talked about, just briefly, you did the sound design for our piece of that play. How important is that side of the art for you? Do you do that type of work early on all of your pieces, or is this something that was new because of your relationship with Mo and what they were asking for?
Right. I'll admit that it's pretty new, though I will also say that the technical side in general is a piece that I'm wanting to get more involved in. I am someone who's pretty technologically savvy, as I'm kind of a quote unquote gamer, if you will, and so I'm one of those people who has the custom PC. I can take the parts out, put them back in, replace them, all that. I can do some pretty serious audio stuff just because that's also attached to doing video stuff, and essentially that's kind of the goal for me, right? Is to get into writing and directing of my own film.
Oh wow!
So the more knowledge on the things I can get, always the better.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
For that particular piece, what were some of your inspirations for the material outside of, as you said, life beating down on just every man? The quote unquote every man, I should say. What are the things that drove you in the creation of that piece?
So I will, for the actual audio itself that they were listening to when they got to our section. I did have a script.
Okay.
But actually, at the time of making or of recording the audio for Mo, I was kind of not in a great place, which I will admit happens kind of a lot. But I try my best nowadays to manage it a little bit more. I was not really in a great place, and it was kind of, very present, if you will.
Was it cathartic, the creation of it?
I would say not exactly cathartic. It felt almost like, and I'm not exactly religious, right? But I'll use the term the universe. It felt kind of like the universe, haha, this is you. You're the clown.
Wow. So when you felt that, did you I have to be in this now? Or was that always part of the plan?
I was always a part of it. I'm not really one who reneges on a show, to be honest. It's usually the case that I'm doing my best and they don't really want me to be in it, if that's the situation, or if I'm not in it, right? Because I think to date, at least, every show that I've auditioned to and have been accepted into, I've done. I don't think I've ever been I'm not doing this.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
I was wondering, as I hit the mic, I was wondering if that, you were signed on to do one thing alone, and then once you created, you're like, oh no, I'm the one that knows this. I should definitely be involved.
Not
but you
exactly.
were always involved to be a part of the piece in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, nice. It was always, she reached out to me actually because she knew about my bit of theater background.
Okay.
So she was like, I want you to act in this. And then it became a point where she was like, I need to get the audio done. Would you be willing to do that? And I was like, I can do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's just dive right into it.
Okay.
Justy, theater. How did it happen to you?
Well, it's a bit of an interesting little story.
Thank goodness. Make sure you're recording this, Dan. Let's go.
So I was 17 at the time.
So just last week.
Yeah, honestly. But my mother was doing a production, so to speak, for a nonprofit that I am now a board member for, Creative Strategies for Change. She was facilitating what they call community cipher, which at the time, though it looks very much different, the community cipher that they're doing right now is very different than the original one. The original one was a show, but devised by the people who come in. So the idea was that, working with youth, we were going to use the youth stories and create the show, which to perform later. I just so happened to be at school one day, coming out, and for the first time in possibly my life, my mother picks me up from school, actually, and she takes me to the theater with which she is doing this at. And upon getting there and meeting another friend who was also facilitating, his name is Andre Carbonell, he's a great friend of mine, I began to get more involved, partially because it seems that this wasn't really going anywhere with the group they had, as well as, they were paid. So I was like, if I'm going to be getting paid to do anything, I should be getting paid to do something interesting and fun.
Yeah.
So eventually that would lead into my senior year of high school, where I did 2 shows, which was The Skin of Our Teeth and Footloose. This was also the first time that I had gotten into theater in high school, period, right? So at my freshman year, I was a singer. I did choir. And after that, I was dealing with a lot of a lot of things. So I was like, I'm just not going to do choir anymore. Yeah. Ultimately, a decision I would come to regret, but not really seriously, like it was high school. It's what it is. But because of that, and because of my lack of interest in previous years and the experience I just had with the Cypher, I was like, I should probably do this. This is something that was an interesting feeling I got. So I auditioned for that. I joined Drama 4, which was kind of a mistake a little bit, because I should have probably did something a little earlier than that. Like, I definitely had enough ability, right, to not do Drama 1 or 2. But it was like, at Drama 4, it's like, well, all we did in that class was sit around and talk about things. And eventually we would have to figure out what senior projects are going to look like. And I was like, I haven't been in a senior project before. I don't know what that looks like. I've never seen one. And we have done nothing near instruction in this entire class since the beginning of the year. So I'm a little confused. But the show side of things, I got to be the announcer in The Skin of Our Teeth.
Okay.
And then I got to be Ren's uncle in Footloose, and Ren, actually.
Oh.
So, interesting thing. This particular year of my high school career, it seems that the people who were in this play that the theater director had casted, he was not exactly happy with, which is interesting because, he casted them. So it's like, you did that. But it seems that he was thinking that we were all kind of, as the Denver kids, so we're not like on the periphery, and this is kind of the reality of what he was touching on, was like Footloose is not all that different from Denver. Yeah. Like not long ago, this was a cow town, So he was kind of getting at that, and he was like, stop judging these characters, just do what you've always been doing. And so at a point that resonated with me, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but I remember the next day I came like decked in it. I was like, I had the bolo tie. I had like a kind of splotchy blazer that I got from Goodwill. Like, I was like, I'm committing to this. Yeah. And eventually what ended up happening was he was so upset with the lead actor who was playing Ren that he just kept replacing him with people. And the guy that he replaced him with could not sing. His voice was like, if you're familiar with the singer Corpse Husband.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty deep.
Yeah.
And this is like a 17-year-old, like that deep.
Damn.
Yeah. So he was trying to sing these notes for Ren, who is not exactly a tenor, but not even a baritone, right? Pretty high. And so it just wasn't working. And eventually I was like, look, I can memorize the script tomorrow. Like, let me do this. And he did. And I showed him. And he apparently, I went back there a little while ago, and he's still telling that story to this day of me memorizing that script the night after that rehearsal and coming in here and doing that.
That's awesome.
So that kind of led me on this path, because after that I realized a couple of things. I've always been a writer. So when it came into theater and thinking about what theater takes and the things that are necessary to put on a production, I was like, I may write novels or short stories or things of that sort, but the case is also that I can adapt. I can try something new. So I started writing plays. And that led me to, after those 2 experiences, becoming like, this is my goal. I want to direct and I want to write film. I want to be able to do the things that, I love. I love those things,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
When you made the decision, what was it, as you look back now, that you said, I came back the next day and I committed? what was the feeling like for you that got you making that choice? Especially, I mean, speaking as a kid who can vaguely remember his high school years, I don't remember like having a focused thought for more than an hour.
Right.
And that was usually class time or while I was playing Madden. When you made that, like, no, I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to buy these things for this character, I'm going to embody this 100%. Where did that come from, and what did that feel like to you?
So to be honest with you, I've always been kind of a loner kid, and I think because of that, I got very cerebral. You know, I was very like, I just think about everything. I'm gonna consider things. I always am very kind of careful. Also, I think I'm learning now that could be due to some anxiety things that I didn't previously know were there, but apparently are some things that I'm dealing with, as I have been conversing with people who also go through them and been like describing like, no, that's exactly what I'm going through, you know? So at the time, and also right before that in The Skin of Our Teeth, I actually lost some lines because I didn't get it. Like, he was like, I was doing my best being like, you know, I was interpreting what he was saying was I need to be louder.
Your
and
director.
So yeah. So I was like, I need to be louder. And I was doing that. And they just kept doing it. And it's like, come on, you have to do better than that. And I don't understand what the problem is. And I'm like, kind of struggling to be like, I don't know what you want me to do, you know? And then I lost a monologue because the announcer has two. And I think in either the first or the second act, I lost that monologue because they didn't like how I was doing it. So then come around Footloose, I audition, I do all these things, you know, and I feel like I'm doing good. Everyone is having seemingly the problem that he said that I was having. And then in that moment, I was like, I have like really two choices here. You know, I can jump into the abyss, or I can keep beating my head against the wall until he figured it out. And so I thought, you know what? My best choice is to go out there and jump right in.
So you felt that the best way to make sense of these notes was to first commit 100% to what you had deemed as the idea of this person?
Right. So I felt like a little bit like the theater director was kind of in a position of, you know, what a director does. He reads the play several times. He kind of builds what he thinks this is, right? I think Mr. Murphy in particular has this particular skill of not judging anybody as far as theater or as far as characters go, right? So he's like, I know who this is. And it's not about bad person, good person, this is who that is. And so to a certain extent, I think that's what he was expecting us to bring to the table was, I know exactly who this character was, but I'm 17, you know, I'm still trying to figure out who I am, you know, much less am I very sure who this character whose motivations don't really make sense to me would be doing, you know? But then that night I was like, because these were two different events in the same show. So like the moment I was like in the bolo tie and everything, and I was like, no, I'm ready to do this. And then the moment where I memorized all those lines. But that first moment I was like, I don't want to keep doing this anymore. What is the point of beating my head on this to the same chorus line, if you will? It's like I have to do something different. And the first thing that came to mind was like, you know, in a movie, they also got like specific costuming. Perhaps I need to do that. Perhaps I need to consider why he would do these things to Ren, you know, why I would have these perceptions. Perhaps I'm a writer. Perhaps I need to build some shit. Excuse my language. I'm not sure if that's okay.
Oh, no. You can totally fucking cuss on this podcast. It's all right.
Nice. So honestly, you know, I was like, I got to do it all.
Yeah.
I got to do whatever I can.
Was any of the choices that you made already in the script outside of the stuff that you said you would create for yourself?
Mostly not. It was morely like, because I think if memory serves, his name is Wes in the script for Footloose. Wes is very much a side character, despite the fact that Ren and his mother live with this guy. So, despite the fact that, you know, he's his uncle, and at least in that case would be, at least in my perception, relatively important in this individual's life. I can't really, of course, I can't speak to other people's family dynamics.
Yeah.
But he's very much a side character,
Yeah.
so there's not really much in the script about him.
Mm-hmm. But I think you're touching on something. Like, if he's sharing the same roof with this person, there is more than just a cursory family connection.
Right. It's not even like this is like some uncle he's never met before.
Yeah.
Like this, if this is the guy you go to the first moment you're moving out of the city, there's a reason for that, but more the point is that, like, there wasn't much in the script. And so I started to just build. I was like, what is this world that he lives in? And the world he lives in was, this kind of, for lack of a better term, excuse me if this is not the right term, kind of a hick town where, dancing and music are now illegal because the reverend pretty much runs the city or runs the town.
A little puritanical.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And because his son was injured having fun, or to be fair, passed away, which is really what the play is about, is a lot of trauma that, goes undealt with. He takes it out on music instead of perhaps reflecting on other things. And so Ren, being, Chicago kid, goes to the clubs, dancing around, all that.
Yeah.
That's just not the way that's the main conflict. And the West thing with his uncle is so periphery, I think, that they left it all out of the script.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you do this in high school, and we're now, how young are you now?
I'm 21.
You're 21 now. Yeah. So what has been your maturation process through the art of performing, writing? Like, let's cover all of it. Where you've been passionate about. How's it grown since you got out of high school?
So since I've gotten out of high school, I will say that I have not gotten the opportunity to direct anything, which is something I've been wanting a lot. But I also I've been recognizing in more recent times that the best actors I know, they have been directed several times and have, to a certain extent, built a style, researched, read books, all the things,
A process.
Right. Yeah. So at a point I was like, I'm hungry for it, but also I need to temper my expectation a little bit and just keep working. On the other side of that, however, the problem I've been having, or the situation has been that a lot of the roles I've gotten recently were more given to me than auditioned for, which is fine, I guess. But the point I'm trying to make is that, a lot of the auditions that I've tried out for, or auditions that I've worked on, brought to the table, become ready for, didn't really lead to anything. Yeah. And the real ways that I've been working in theater has been people being like, I know who you are, come in, It seems that I'm dealing with, partially because of my age, and I'll probably say primarily my age, I've been dealing with a lot of no's and a lot of not even an email back until, like, perhaps the show stopped running even at times. I remember one time, I can't remember the situation. Yeah, it's like at a point it's like,
I saw the show. I knew I wasn't in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it's just been rough. It's been kind of difficult, but I will say that I'm very thankful because I've also had opportunities like Land of Milk and Honey, like the clown show, like As You Like It, where people were like, I've seen your work and I know who you are and I believe in you. Yeah. And that's something that I've been very thankful for recently.
Yeah. You're definitely building up a resume in that regard, but it sounds like your lack of the opportunity to even audition has been because you find that you get feedback from that, or at least a sensation of the quality of your work? No.
The last audition I did actually was very recent.
Oh, wow.
And I remember they were like, and this is someone who was in a previous show with me. And I auditioned for the show. They were like super excited for me to come out, and then they didn't really give me any of the sides that they said. So first off, I get there a little bit late because communicated this because I had something else to do that day and I couldn't be there at the exact time. I get there. to read the sides that they said I should read, and they don't have me read those sides. They have me read for a character I didn't realize that they were even considering me for. And then after that, I hear, we'll call you. And I never heard back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard. It's been the thing that I've
like
been
getting
having.
left on red.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Except the biggest problem for me has been not taking it personally. Because, like, I know a lot of people talk about it in theater. It's like, no's are just how it goes. But it's also just like, I mean, is an email that much,
Yeah.
Is like a...
what you're saying, you're preaching to the young rookie actor in me as well. And I mean, and I don't want to say like rookie as like a pejorative. It's for the first 5 years of my career, every time I didn't get a part, I would have a day, to say the least. I'm going to eat my feelings. That was just a thing I did all the time when I was sad, or happy. I always, it didn't really. I mean, when you like food as much as I do, it's both the causative and solution to all of your problems. But then there was that. It was the personal toll that I would put on myself through it. Like I'm not even good enough to get an email. And then I would get emails that were clearly blanket emails that were sent to like 20 people or 50 people, depending on how many people audition for the show. There's only so many parts you can have. Right. And I would like, oh, this is clearly a blanket email. This is bull crap. And, and I would definitely respond to that in a hostile way. It took, for me, like I had to find, honestly, other things to get excited about, other things to... And I'm not saying you're doing this. This was my journey. Right. I tied all of my self-worth when I started acting to my acting. If I was not acting, I was not an artist, and therefore I was nothing. And that was from 27 till 30, 35. I mean, and every once in a while, that voice comes back into my head, and it's loud. And I had to create a life that didn't revolve around that. Right. And I won't go down the myriad of choices that I made in order to like better evolve as a person and take care of myself. But like those are legitimate things that happen to a lot of actors when they get started. It's the no that drives us away. And like even now, I won't go into my next steps in life as I've made some choices. The Instagram live video coming up later. But the no and the lack of success is a big wall to make peace with in order to keep pursuing it. Right. It's like it's got to be a way of life. But it's the first thing for me. It was the first thing that I was good at, that I acknowledged I had some skill at, and I tied all that worth to it. Like I'm 38 and I still say like that's definitely the thing I'm the best at. Like I do that better than I do a lot of other things. I'm going to make a living doing this. I want to make the rest of my life about this and in service to it. Right. And then getting to a place where I can make that decision and not worry about the no's is going to be. I mean, we'll juggle that as we go down the road further. Right. When you talk about now you seeing other actors, established actors, coming up with style, process is was the word I was attributing to it, and that might not be how you see it. What are some of the things that you yourself right now are like, this is what I go to like when I'm preparing?
I have to admit, a lot of it that I do when I'm preparing for stuff comes about similarly from an anxiety of like, I don't want to make a fool of myself, And I think to a certain extent, us as actors, we kind of learn after we go for a while to just like let it go, but it's never like completely gone. You know what I mean? So sometimes I'm like, all right, I have this cool thing, this interesting thing. And that's one of the things that I think has been integral to me becoming the person I am now is like being the person and the way that I consume media, I think is a little bit different than perhaps the way other people consume media. And
how so?
I think I'm always being as cerebral as I am when I watch a movie or even listening to just music as I'm driving by, you know, or just various things. I'm absorbing these things and trying to get to the deeper meanings of why they exist. Now, granted, I don't always get there. There's a song actually in that came up for me yesterday that I just realized was about something that I totally didn't connect. And then when I connected it, I was like, why didn't I see that? You know? But I'm trying my best to analyze it to a certain extent. I feel like there's almost a natural kind of literary critique and literary critic in my head that's always like, why is this the way it is, and what is it intending to achieve, especially when it comes to the arts. So in preparing, I often am like, this is interesting and this may help me if the person who I'm auditioning for, right, sees what I'm trying to get at, then perhaps they will notice the connection there that I've already built based on my choice in perhaps the monologue that I'm auditioning with. Yeah. Also, something I've seen that something I've been learning a lot of is from various directors. I remember a point where in Land of Milk and Honey where I got to see you do your Jason part. And for a minute, I had to like legitimately sit there and just wonder how you did that, and some of your mannerisms and the way that you were controlling your body. You know what I mean? And the way that the words came out of you. It's like there's this level of commitment that is just that like I'm always reminded of, right? Like going back to what we were talking about when it came to the Footloose stuff and like jumping into the abyss, if you will. It's like every time you come back out and you got to jump in again, you know? And it's like sometimes it may be more harder, more difficult, but that was one of those moments actually where I straight up was like, this is what I want to be. Nice. I want to be as committed to my role as you are to your roles. Like that was brilliant seeing your performance.
Thank you, man. That's high praise. I'm surprised, and that I appreciate it. It means a lot. Yeah. When I'm gonna put you into a little thought experiment here. Okay. Okay. I just cast you. You got the part. Okay. You got it. All right. You are reading the script for the first time. He's the lead. He's got a romantic interest. The conflict is there. It's an unseen supernatural force that is driving you two apart. Whatever, you can just lock onto those things. Before the first read, you're reading that script. Do you read the whole thing, just your lines, both?
I read the whole thing.
You read the whole thing? Yeah,
one of the things, going back to Footloose, actually.
It's our touchstone. I love it. Let's keep going back. This is where the germ started, man.
Yeah. It was kind of funny, actually, because it was very clear that nobody had read the full thing.
In high school? What?
Because what happened was we were all sitting there on stage and someone says something and the script calls for raucous applause. And the room was still. And Murphy went off. He was livid. He was like, "What? Did you not read it?" So
that's my favorite thing about a first read. Yeah, is when there is uproarious clamor from the ensemble, and we get to that point, and no one does it. It's all these kind of collective scared looks around the room, and then the director, like probably anticipating it, but also being annoyed at it, goes like, moving on. We'll work that in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I am definitely read it all the way. And then if for no other reason, and granted, I don't think that every single script requires that, I'm going to do it anyway. But I don't think that I think some are even built for you to be these are my lines, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, some are definitely built that way, yeah.
But from a writer's standpoint, from also someone who's wanting to write plays and write screenplay and all that, I should be reading this. I should be absorbing this as much as I can, because if I don't absorb it, then how am I going to know how to write a play?
It's a great point. It's a very good point. You talk about being cerebral.
Right.
When you look at your character, you're looking at this character that I've just given you. We're going to open in 4 weeks.
Right.
Do you start your thought process in terms of the macro? Where does my guy fit in the whole of the play, the piece, or where does he fit in the moment? And then look at the moment specifically. These are the first 10 pages that he's in. This is where he occupies. What's new here? Or I should say, if it's the first 10 pages, you're like, what is he do? What's he doing here? What does he want here?
Yeah.
Do you ask those types of questions?
I think I do ask those questions, but more often, to your point, I almost unintentionally go towards the macro first, see what perhaps where, and I think this is because to a certain extent I'm a big world builder, right? I love fiction, so whenever it comes to writing a new piece, I'm like, where do these characters live? Why do they live here? How did they get here in the first place? You know, and so I'm pretty macro, I think, at the beginning. Sometimes I'll argue unintentionally. But as things go, as I try to, especially with scenes that I may be having trouble with, because I'll be reading and I'll read and then I'll stop and I'll be like, what does that mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? So then I'll focus in on that and I'm trying to figure out what it is that it's actually trying to be communicated in this moment. One of those actually happened. I was reading, not actually in the show, but I was reading Othello recently. And one of the things that hit me was that big monologue that Iago has at the beginning, right after the senators had all come in and they're talking about how Desdemona and Othello are this is evil and all this stuff. And he essentially schmoozes the room, the general that he is, you know? I was that was a hard one for me. Just reading it, I was like, what is he talking about? And not even from the Shakespeare side, right? Yeah. Shakespeare wrote very differently than we talk now. Yeah. But even outside of that, I was like, what is he really getting at? So then I did some more research. I put the book down actually for a little bit and watched some videos. And it was an explanation. And one of the things that hit me was this explanation of the I am not what I am line being a parallel to Genesis, God in Genesis saying I am what I am. Oh. And so ever since then, it made more sense. Iago's entire point in this play is just to cause chaos. That's all he wants. And so I got into that moment. I realized that's what this is about, is chaos and anger and violence, because he doesn't want to because he's sick of being subordinate, you know? Yeah. So it's kind of a thing where I'm reading it and I'm, mostly understanding, I got to reread a bunch. Yeah. But there's always almost a point where I'm I have to stop, be what did he just say? And really start to extrapolate that, if you will. Yeah,
definitely. Two thoughts. One, I would love to be involved in the Shakespearean debate about Iago's place in that piece. That is one of my favorite characters. Really? Yeah, I have done this monologue, a specific monologue from this play, not that one you're quoting, ad nauseum for every director in town that is looking for a classical monologue for me. So right. I'm sorry, it's really good. And I feel like that would be a fun conversation, because I myself need to do more research before I can even weigh in on that. And then my last thing is, so then you've done this research, you've looked at a moment, you've looked at those first 10 pages, you've thought about the macro. How do you approach that day in rehearsal? What is your rehearsal focus like? Are you thinking in terms of that, or is it just about running line and blocking and getting my marks, so to speak?
So for me, and I think this is where the artistry in acting comes in, because I've been dealing with it a lot. I've been really wondering, or not really, perhaps not wondering, but examining the role of the actor in what we call the arts. Because at times it's felt like an actor comes in, does what he's told, and then leaves. And I think that perhaps is simply the style of some of the directors I've had, perhaps. But to me, the best thing I can do as an actor is understand why I'm doing this or why this character is doing this. Understand and be motivated by the things that they are motivated by. So even if it's a situation like Iago, I think Iago is very much motivated by his own fed upness, if you will, his own anger. And so if that's what it takes, I'm going to bring some anger in. I'm going to bring perhaps, and that's something I've been trying to get away from, but bringing in some of the things that are happening in my life into it. Because at times it seems that some of those things that I've chosen are not exactly appropriate for the character or for the moment. But just to bring that initial emotion, perhaps, to bring in some realities from my life, to be like, this, I'm also pissed about this, or I'm also sad, or I'm ecstatic that this is the reality of the situation,
Based off what I'm hearing here, have you found a deepening in your craft as you've gotten more aware of how you, Justy, process stimuli in your own life? When you talk about you've got your anxiety that you are working through, that's something that you're probably going to be working through for a long time.
Right.
I work through my depression all the time. Do you find in this, when maybe you started making those realizations, I'm acting a specific way because I am feeling pressure from these unseen forces in my brain or how I respond to these things. And once you started making those connections, did that start to shift how you approach the work?
I think it did. I think it was actually, there was a catalyst for it that I keep with me to this day. So I was in college for a semester because despite doing pretty well in all of my classes, I could no longer afford to keep going. But one of the things that I did take with me was this one day I had an acting class and we were doing yoga. And I was like, I don't quite understand this, I don't understand why we're doing these movements. But then I remember this point where we're kind of like, I can't remember what the pose is called, but we're kind of bent over and we rise up. And your feet are perfectly placed, almost exactly right right under your shoulders. Yeah. You put your shoulders back almost on instinct. And she was like, this is the neutral place. And then it hit me is that whenever I feel those kinds of things where I'm perhaps bringing in the wrong thing, I need to go back to that neutral place. Reassess, take a moment to center before I can go in and keep doing it. And I think it's changed ever since.
Really?
Very much so.
It's interesting. I love how it started from a place of confusion. I don't know why we're doing this stretching to find that like is a mindset shifter for you and picking up that I need that when I'm feeling this particular way.
Right.
In order to actually give something to what I'm involved in. It's cool that you picked up on that. I know, for me, what the stretching position you described getting into, everything in my brain was like, nope, my body can't do that. Not even gonna fucking try. It's not gonna happen. You know what my neutral state is? Lying prone on my couch. Yeah. Just lying down. That's it. Mainly because I'm lazy when I'm not on the grind. I think that's where it all goes.
I think to a point though, there's something pretty not ironically, I don't know why that was going to come out of my mouth, but there's something grounding there. You know what I mean? You're literally on not the ground, it's your couch, but like you're laying flat in connection with this thing that's supporting you, and it's like I have this opportunity now to come back to a place of stillness. Yeah,
it's important that you find those things, especially if you are competing with, as I keep referring to them, and I mean no disrespect when I say that, but like these unseen forces in our brains. It's
right.
Like I have my own foibles that I deal with. Most days I'm pretty in control. I've had a long career battling these guys,
right,
and have had many conversations with many highly trained and maybe not so highly trained professionals that take money to help people with these issues.
Right.
And then I've had friends that are, that have done similar practices. They've done medications and things of that nature. And it's shifted not just how their body responds to these triggers, but then how they themselves respond to themselves. It changes the person. And so and I'm not trying to give any medical advice, so I'm going to steer clear of what I was going to say. I'm definitely not somebody that should be doing that. By the way, what's that drug, the horse tranquilizer that's curing everybody? That's a lie. I'm sorry.
Cures you of the condition of life, I hear.
I do. Yeah, I think really what I was trying in regards to what you were kind of experiencing, it's such this, and forgive me, this podcast has kind of turned into one of those things where I'm like, I'm seeing a lot of myself in you, and I'm really trying to ask like the right questions to try and like push, which is manipulative. It's manipulative. And I can see that. And I hope my audience understands too. The reason why I'm thinking of doing, I've gone on this road is like, this is a conversation this is the conversation, Ghostlight, that I wish I had when I was leaving college. Someone to challenge me like this. I was always asked what was the point of the journey, as opposed to how do I get on the train? Where do I get tickets?
Right.
What is there etiquette? Can I get up and walk around the cabin? I'm extending the metaphor because there is so much to any choice and path you take in life. Right. There are so many different routes, and there are so many things that it's never straight, and it's never the way it works for one person across the board.
Right.
And my career, my life experiences are never going to be yours, and so I should really do a good job of like not trying to attribute any of those to them. But it's one of those things too, is like I really respect the arc that you're on right now, where it's starting for you. There is a person that cares very deeply about their place in the crafting of a project. That's really apparent. There is someone that cares about being a professional. It's a very good thing to have, especially when you're starting out. When you come into it thinking you're already a professional as opposed to like working at it, that can lead to some complications. Excuse me. That's what happens when you start talking so much after you've chugged a bunch of water. And then there's this other piece to it that is the unknown. And for you, when you talk about dealing with things like anxiety, like those are things, like the second those voices are given any traction, it makes sticking to the path you've chosen for yourself hard. You start to acquiesce,
right? And
you start to sacrifice certain things along that journey. So like for me, I wanted to, like, I was just going to do acting, and I was going to have a day job that was going to pay all the bills. And then I realized that day job that was paying all the bills, and this was years ago, I'm not talking about today,
right?
Which is, again, funny, history repeating itself for me. I had this job. It was great. It was, at the time, really good money. Now, probably not so much. And then it was like, well, I can do this for another 5 years, and find the point where I have to make the decision to walk away from theater because it is just too hard. And then I lose all the traction that I was making for myself, all the momentum, or I find an out. And I was given an out, and I took that, and then I got lazy because I was scared to try to stay down this theater path.
Right.
And then I built up another career. It took me a while. I lost a lot of stuff. I had built relationships with people and watched that get thrown in my face. I had I had a roof over my head, and then all of a sudden I had no way to keep that roof over my head, and I had to rely on family and friends to keep me going. My mom paid a portion of my rent, and I was in my late 30s, and I am once again making a very similar choice about I am going to turn my back on what is quote unquote steady income because I can't do that anymore and still think I can be an actor.
Right.
Like the paths just won't work. I got through Crucible and it was murderous. I hated the person I was. I didn't like the thoughts I was having about the people I was working with. And when the people you're working with are children, that's a place I don't want to reside in for too long.
Right.
And then I was realizing that I had no energy for family and friends. Like I'm turning down all these opportunities. And I guess I go down this long story about me to tell you and to ask you what it is that you want and what will you not sacrifice, Justy.
Right. And on that, I think about it a lot, especially because recently I was actually in an argument with an individual who was talking about all this stuff about like cryptocurrencies and black people need to get guns, we need to keep ourselves safe and all this other stuff. And at a point I realized that I'm talking to a coward who's never going to understand what I'm talking about. And this is what I'm talking about. Being the person that I have, and I think it is both a blessing and a curse because though I am very thankful to continue to be here, I will admit that I have not always had a very high thought process about my life, if you will. And I think it is a curse, very much so, but I think it comes through in the ways that I'm not really willing to sacrifice my life for anything other than the art that I love, because I truly believe there is no purpose otherwise. I think all of this is, we can keep chasing, we can be, for lack of a better term, we can be the animals that we were born as. We can be focused on survival and survival alone. But never once in my life, and I think due to some other things, and due to realizing how miserable some of the people in my life's lives were, despite their focus on these things, I was just like, there is no way that I'm going to subject myself to this. If I can't do this, then I don't want to do it. So to a certain extent, my goal, my reality, the things I'm not willing to sacrifice are the things that I do every day. And I think to a certain extent, I can't say that I haven't sacrificed anything because right now I have a job. Yeah. And though it's a very good job, it doesn't really pay well, but it is good as in I'm doing good work. Yeah. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I'm doing good work for good people. Despite that, and despite the fact that previously I hadn't had that job because I was focusing entirely on creating stuff, though at that time not really seeing much dividends from it, I really am not as, I'm really not very I guess very stubborn is the word that comes to mind, is like if I'm not doing the work, doing this thing I love, this creating these beautiful things, if I can't do that, then I don't think I want to do anything, So
totally.
Yeah, I think it's a little extreme, and I think that's why I say it's kind of a blessing and a curse. Is like it's a blessing because I've also seen people deathly afraid of what happens when they don't have those kinds of backing, monetary, different kinds of things. I've seen it, and I think it's always tragic and sad when these people who these people who had these beautiful dreams and these beautiful goals no longer are achieving or chasing them. And I think if that's the reality that we are yielded or given, then my choice is to succeed or to die, frankly.
No, I think that's one of the things too, is like, that is what fueled me getting out of college. Yeah. And I've mentioned this on the podcast a lot. I didn't know who I was until I was other people. Okay. So that's my quote. We'll put that on my tombstone because I say it all the time. But the fact of the matter was, I got born again twice through theater. I got out of college and realized, oh no, this needs to be a part of my life. This brings me joy. Right. And then I got all that stuff, and I was making shows, and then I got to a place I'm like, this is not having an effect on anyone. My performance it's not, there's no echo. I want it to echo.
Right.
I want to get to a place where when people are like showing up at a show and they flip through the program, like, oh, that's the guy that was in such and such. He did this thing back in like, or whatever. And like, I like this guy. That guy does stuff for me.
Yeah.
Like that would be cool to have that impact on somebody. And so I had to start taking acting classes again. And I really had to kind of explore the things that were getting in the way of that feeling for me. And now, older, wiser, I hope, definitely older. I go back to the young boy graduating college. Is like, this is the thing that I'm the best at. This is the thing that makes me feel the best about myself. And that passion that you're talking about, it's either this or nothing, is what should stay with you for a while. It should absolutely be there. It should absolutely be part of this fire.
Right.
As the old man sitting across the table from you, I would say, but understand that there is a life that must reside outside of your art.
Right.
Because then there is nothing to show a mirror up to. There is nothing for you to draw from if you have no life. Like if it is just this and you're not getting work, and now I'm trying to make ends meet between gigs and stuff like that, and that becomes too much to bear. And I only say that because I've done this. I've gone down this road. I've failed at this, and I may very well indeed fail again. It's the life I've chosen. For better or for worse, there still has to be something that you can, in the nights where you don't have rehearsal or you get off of rehearsal and your partner is asleep and your pet is walking up to you and you sit down and you're like, I'm going to put on this song. I'm going to grab this book. I am going to start writing that play because that can never turn off. Don't ever let that turn off. I let it get turned off way too many times. And one of the reasons why is because I get stuck in the macro. I can only think about if I can't write the whole thing in this hour, it's not going to happen, which is why I do poetry. Because I can sit and I can do that. That takes an hour, and then I can workshop it in another hour, Anyway, like, find those things that buoy the spirit in between gigs. Find those things that provide definition for the person you see in the mirror and go like, right. I like that about me too. Right now, what are the things that you love about yourself, Justy?
Honestly, I think you talked to some of them. I mean, my thing is like, to a certain extent, I love the fact that I consider myself an artist. And I think what I mean by that is not I'm just this kind of artist or that kind of artist, that I'm an artist and I care for the arts in general. I'm a person who can appreciate a film. I am a person who can appreciate reading a play. I am a person who can appreciate music and has appreciated music forever. I feel like I'm one of the few people who say that they listen to everything and actually mean it. Because truly, I don't think there is a song in any genre, at least one song in any genre, that I don't like. I think there's perhaps genres that I haven't been exposed to.
Right
but
now,
there will be.
What are your thoughts on Rapper Estates by Rick Ross?
I haven't heard that song, actually.
Oh, dang. I was trying to stump him. Folks. He got me.
So, I think it's like either I haven't been exposed to it, and don't get me wrong, there are things that I don't like in music as well, but it's not really a genre thing. It's like a song thing, really. Even most artists that I know of, at least, it's like there's a song that appeals to me, even if I don't like the rest of their album. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, like, when it comes to my arts, when it comes to the art in general, I think that's really where all of the joy in my life comes from. Or not all of it, because I also think though I'm kind of introverted to a certain degree, I'm also happy to see other people, if that makes sense. Like people doing things, being happy themselves makes me happy. Yeah. I like to be around people who are enjoying things. so that, but also, all I got to really do is get home. And I've actually started, while we're talking about writing, I started working on something tonight, which is really my bigger problem, is that I can't stop working on something new more than, stopping completely.
Well, that's great. Well, I mean, I'm glad you took the time out to come talk to us from that creation.
Yeah.
Before we go, what is that ghost light you wish that was left on for you?
I'll admit, I'm the kind of person who tries my best to never stop learning, right? So like, I've always been like, I'm going to absorb it all, and I can, if nothing else, even if it doesn't go anywhere, I can put it in a story later, So, when it comes to the things that I think have been the most valuable for me is learning that I have value in general. I thought a lot about it when I was younger. I think one of the things that's ironic, actually, is that theater director from East High School, Matt Murphy, he would often repeat to me, like, dude, you're amazing, and things of the sort, talking to me. And I was like, I've always been kind of bad at taking compliments. I've been like, I don't, thanks. I don't know what to say. Not saying that I was unappreciative, right? But to say that these are not things that I had previously considered to be real about me. And as I'm going through things and I'm writing things and I'm committing to the things that I love, and I'm continuing to try and add joy to other people's lives as well, doing generally things, having vision, As I'm going through these things, I think the one thing that I wish I could have told myself when I was younger was that you can't really say what someone else's perception of you is. If that person thinks you're amazing, then that's what that person thinks. And instead of being like, I don't know if that's true, be like, I appreciate it. That's sweet of you. I may be dealing with something right now that makes it hard for me to see, but I'm happy that you shared that perception of me. Yeah. And perhaps if I just keep going, and I have, I will realize that, perhaps these people weren't just gassing me up, know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's a nice thing to pass along. I, for one, can attest to the like, oh, gee, thanks. It means a lot. And then walking away going like, they don't know. Yeah. No, they let them compliment you. Let them have that thought. Don't try to get right as you see yourself. Like that. Let them do that. Shout outs to East High School. Class of 02. What? Angels in the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Big ups to Melody and Hannah Duggan. Melody was my teacher. Shout outs to Brian Carroll. I went to high school with that guy. He's a freaking comedic genius. Wow. I was so jealous of what he could do on stage. I never told you that, Brian Carroll. You are awesome. You are an awesome actor, and I hope you are still crushing it out there. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Ghost Lights Podcast. It's episode 84. My guest has been Justy Robinson. I hope you'll keep an eye out for him. I hope you will one day be reading one of his scripts or watching one of his movies where he's starring, wrote, and directed that piece. It's going to happen as long as we stay on our paths. Mm-hmm. There's no denying that. And with that, Dan, do the damn thing. So there's the Every Kiss Begins with K Diamond commercials, but then there's also this old Diamond commercial, I think for like Le Cartier or whatever, and it's all silhouettes. So it's the couples in silhouette, like dancing and looking, like walking on the beach, and then like receiving a gift, and that gift is the wedding ring. And on this episode of Family Guy, they go through kind of all of those things, taking a walk, they're walking a puppy, they're watching a movie in front of a fire, and then he gives her a gift. And as their silhouettes play on the wall, she goes down and he starts smiling big, and it goes like, after this, she'll kind of have to. Yeah, and it's crass, but damn it, if I didn't laugh my ass off the first time I saw that.